Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie and today, as promised, I'm going to have a further look at the Jackson's Sap Green. And before we get cracking with the paintings, make sure you have subscribed and have those delightful notifications on so you don't miss out on any more videos like this one. So yes, Jackson's Sap Green, and I can understand why you guys really wanted me to make some more art with it. I thought it would be delicate enough to use with an ink and wash rather than using the mass tone of the colour to create the line work, so I pre-drew some things and I'm going to talk through what I did on each one and my thought processes. I should also mention as well that I am using the Jackson's own brand watercolour and it is the hot press. It's 300 GSM and it came in a block which I removed several sheets from and made my own little sketch pad with. The only downside to doing that, because I just got a bit carried away, was I didn't know which side was the painting side and which side was the other side, so this will be interesting. However, I am pretty pleased with how the paper and the paint perform, so it's not a big deal, it's just one of them things, and because it's in a sketch pad, it's all practice and it's just all having fun. Anyway, I think I've waffled on enough about the ingredients, let's have a little look at the recipe, shall we? So for the background, I did an incredibly light wash. The tint of it is so light you could still assume it is white, but as soon as that washi tape is removed you can just see a very subtle difference between the white of the paper and the colour I lay down. After adding a little bit more of the paint directly from the pan into the diluted mix, I start to go in and add the base tone for the leaves. Bear in mind as well, it's also layering a colour on top of a colour, so it's going to look a little bit more bold. Once that had dried, I went in again for some of the tones and shadow values there. And that was before going in and adding more of the same colour but a more concentrated mix for all of the veins and the stalky bits of the leaves. It was quite interesting deciding what subject matter to use for this particular colour, and I didn't want to go too far down the picking green animals route or drawing a dragon or something too much from my imagination. I actually wanted to see if I could apply this to something with, I wouldn't say a massive amount of realism, but something a little bit more recognisable. I went onto the website Pexels and just typed in green foliage and green leaves and came out with this image, and it was lovely to work with. I also like the negative space, and I think actually this would make a really nice picture if I hadn't outlined it as well. But again though, I would have needed to use additional colours just to give that sense of depth and form. I also have been wanting to improve on my botanical drawings and sketches and paintings, so this is a good exercise for me as well. It's one of those subject matters that I kind of keep dodging to practice, and it's the same with architecture as well. I'm not great at drawing buildings and I'm not great at drawing flowers and plants either. So naturally the way to overcome this is to practice, right? And keep practicing until it just starts to feel a little bit more natural, and then I can move on to drawing plants and flowers out of my imagination, because I should have that skill set there. As you can see now, I'm removing that masking tape. You can just see that there is a slight difference between the tone of the paper and the paint that I'd applied on the top, and I like that. It's very nice and delicate and subtle, and that's what I wanted to do. For this one, I thought I'd pick something with a deeper tone in it, so we've gone for a pine here. Again, the image I referenced from is from the website Pexels, so be sure to check that out. It's free, you're allowed to do it, and I will leave links down below to the artists, or the photographers I should say, where I got these images from. Now I believe the sap green is made out of 2 pigments, and right now I couldn't tell you what they were, so that is one to check on Jackson's website. And the thing is, when there is a paint that's built with two pigments, is sometimes you can split them and harvest the properties of both of the pigments from the paint. I started this off with just the normal ratio of whatever the paint's made from, and just added a base coat for all of those lovely little pine needles there. I used a very fine brush to fill in those areas and taking care not to go over the lines. And speaking of the line work, again, I completely forgot to mention, the pen I used for this was a Rotring Tiki in a size 0.1. I love those pens. I love the Faber-Castell, I like the Sakura, but the Rotring Tiki, mwah, they are one of my favourite line of pens. They're just a little bit too expensive for me to keep buying a lot of them, like I do with the Fabers and the Sakuras and the Uni pens as well. They have a nice flow of ink to them, they dry relatively quickly, and of course they're archival and waterproof. Not that archival really matters inside my sketchbook, but you get where I'm coming from. You have a nice experience with the material and you want to keep using it. I also really like the black ink against this single colour as well, and I really enjoy the simplicity of just colouring it in. I don't do this very often really. With me moving home very soon, actually, in a matter of a few weeks from posting this video, I'm at a stage now where I am really having to work off a limited amount of supplies, because I'm sure you can imagine and understand I have a lot to pack. So I've packed away the majority of my materials, and for the next few weeks I'm going to keep it relatively simple. I'm still going to do unboxings, and obviously I'm still got to finish Mermaid off, but again, the gouache is in one place, so it's not really a problem. I'm not having to ferret through lots of different tubes of things. And of course I'll keep my tin of watercolours handy too, because I just love watercolours. So you will have noticed a few moments ago that I was stirring around the sap green in one dish and added water and then extracted that top layer, so I have a more yellowy hue, and then what was left behind in the residue is more of a blue hue, and I use that to add different levels of tone. I also took this opportunity as well to give, again, a very light wash in the background, but using that more yellow version of the sap green that I extracted, and again it just adds a nice delicate background. I avoided using any on the tree branch because I really just wanted the white of the paper to come through, but just have that delicate background to balance things and offset it a little bit. I used the deeper blues to add some depth, again around that little pine cone area, as well as at the bases of the pine needles and wherever there is shadow, apart from on the branch. I just kept that as line work. And as you can see, once the tape's removed, you've just got that very, very faint border. Now this is where I dispute whether I used the right side of the paper or not, because that tape pulled up a lot of the paper, which it's a bit of a bugbear of mine, and I'm sure it's a bit of a bugbear of yours. I did give it a blast with a heat tool, but sometimes it's going to rip the paper up, and it was very low tack washi tape, but it still ripped a chunk of the paper off. If you do find that happens with your watercolour paper and you obviously don't want to paint the whole thing again, I do find that if you layer a piece of print paper and then go over that and push down with a teaspoon, that sometimes pushes the paper back into place and it doesn't look as ugly. For my final painting here, I thought I would use the sap green alongside some other colours, but obviously the sap green is the star of the show here. I believe I used the sepia that I think came with the scroll box in April. I thought that would just pair nicely. I also use the Naples yellow that I had from Jackson's, as well as a Naples yellow that I have by Van Gogh, which has a slightly more pinkish tone. I thought it would be a great idea to see how this green works with other colours. I know I did a painting when I unboxed the Jackson's paint and worked with it, but again though, just to use it with other colours and see how well they go and how well they blend and complement each other. The principles of how I extracted the darker tones from the lighter tones from that sap green still in play here. I still carried on doing that, but on the belly of the frog and around the eye I introduced those Naples yellows in just to break it up, and I think it worked really nicely. I didn't go over the top with it, it was just nice and subtle, and I let the colours bleed into each other a little bit. Now, the all-important question I would like to put across to you was, because there was a little poll asking Jackson's red or Jackson's sap green, would you like me to do a video using that beautiful vibrant Jackson's red? If you do, let me know down below and I might just make that happen. It is in the little watercolour supply that I'm keeping to one side before I move house, so it's possible. And also, this isn't a big sketchbook I'm working on here, another benefit of making my own, so hopefully I might have that finished before I move. So if you want a little sketchbook tour as well, and I might include a couple of videos adding more drawings and paintings in there, I'd be more than happy to show that to you guys if you want it. I really loved working with this sap green though. Let's talk about the paint here. So yes, I really enjoyed working with it. It's not too over the top. I like the fact I can split it and ever so slightly change the hue of the green as well without having to dive into any other colours. I also found it a little bit more, and I suppose I can't think of any other words to describe it, but it seemed a little bit more of an earthier sap green. Not quite an olive green, but there was something a little bit more to it than the overly vibrant sap greens I've used before. But I aren't complaining about those either. Each paint I have has a place. I like how nicely it glided across the paper on a wash and how nice it settled on more concentrated areas too. But that is the Jackson sap green video and 3 paintings all done and dusted. I hope you've enjoyed this video. There should be some more on the screen right now I think you'll enjoy. I just want to say a massive thank you for watching, and I will see you lovely lot soon.